What if I told you the most important thing anyone ever said to Kobe Bryant had nothing to do with basketball, and that Kobe rejected it to the man's face? Somewhere in the middle of a career that would produce 5 championships and 33,000 points, Magic Johnson pulled Kobe aside and asked him a question he had no interest in answering.
Trivial things weren't going to pull my attention. It had to be things that I had a purpose. I wanted to be one of the best basketball players to ever play. And anything else that was outside of that lane, I didn't have time for.
What do you want your legacy to look like? It can't just be about winning championships and killing everybody. Kobe didn't soften it. He looked at the greatest Laker of the previous generation and told him, essentially, that he had the wrong guy. My personality is more in line with Michael's than yours.
When we matched up, I think he understood that. And when I was 18, my first year, he got the best of me a bunch of times. I was right there the next play. You're not intimidating me. I'm not going anywhere.
He said he was better than Mike. That's what he chased his whole life, was to be just as good or mentioned with Michael Jordan.
I remember saying, I need to get 6. I want to be able to sit at the same table with Mike.
At the time, that answer made perfect sense to almost everyone who heard it. Kobe was chasing Jordan's ghost, not Magic's.
Michael in particular, he's become my big brother. We call him Black Jesus. I said, when I face him, we're gonna go at it.
He measured his life in rings and had no patience for anything that didn't move that number. And the results were backing him up.
So at 13 years old, I had a kill list. So when we go on the AAU travel circuit, I gotta hunt them down, right? And so that became my mission in high school, is to check off every other person, all those 56 other names, hunt them down and knock them down.
It took him almost 20 years to understand what he'd been told. So why did a man with 5 titles of his own tell the most driven player alive that titles wouldn't be enough? And why did nobody, including Kobe, want to hear it until the very end? To understand that, you have to know why Magic Johnson was the one person on earth qualified to say it.
I love controlling the action, right? And so being a leader of every team I played on, the only thing I wanted to do, man, was win.
Most people remember the smile, the no-look passes, the fast break, the joy that made Showtime the most watchable team in the sport's history. That version of Magic is real, but it's only half the story. Because Irvin Johnson was every bit as ruthless as the man he was advising. He won a championship as a rookie, filling in at center in a finals clinching game, and putting up 42 points on a team missing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
There it is, it's over, and the most valuable player is Magic Johnson. 42 points, 15 rebounds, and 7 assists. He starts at center, plays forward and guard, and leads the Los Angeles Lakers to a world championship 123-107 over Philadelphia without Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
He won 5 titles, 3 MVPs, and spent a decade in open war with Larry Bird.
And here's Magic Johnson with Henderson chasing him. Johnson calling the play, guarded by Larry Bird. Larry Bird was the leading free throw shooter in the NBA. He's been a first-team All-Star.
His rivalry with Bird carried the NBA out of a period where finals games were shown on tape delay because the league couldn't sell them. Between them, they made professional basketball a television product, and Magic was the showman of the two. He also learned something Kobe hadn't yet, and he learned it in the worst way imaginable. In November 1991, at 32 years old, still in his prime, coming off a finals appearance the previous June, Magic walked into a press conference and told the world he was retiring immediately after testing positive for HIV.
Because of the HIV virus that I have attained, I will have to retire from the Lakers today. You think it could never happen to you, but I'm gonna deal with it, and my life will go on.
Here's somebody in the prime of his career who was gone. And honestly, I really felt like I didn't want to be involved anymore.
Why not?
Well, it was just because I felt so horrible for him. And at that point in time, it was like a death sentence.
Man, I was sick, man, for the first 2 years that I'm not out there.
Right.
With my guys, I'm young in my prime.
You had to be depressed. The mental anguish of dealing with this,
For sure.
publicly,
For sure.
I'm not.
At the time, the diagnosis was widely considered a death sentence. This was not a man stepping away to spend time with family or nurse a bad knee. He was leaving because people genuinely believed he was going to die. The basketball career ended in a single afternoon. One press conference, and the thing he had organized his entire life around was gone. What happened next says a lot about him. Fans voted him into the 1992 All-Star Game anyway, and he showed up and won MVP of it.
Johnson, 9 assists for Magic, all in the second half. Three-pointer, yes! Oh, my!
He played on the original Dream Team that summer and won a gold medal. He kept insisting on being visible at a moment when a great deal of the public wanted him to disappear quietly. But the career was over, and it forced him to answer at 32 a question most athletes get to postpone until their 50s. If you take the game away right now, what exactly are you?
Mortality is I always wanted to be, after it was over, just live a normal life anyway. And, now my life will change, no question about it, but
Magic's answer became the second act that reshaped what an athlete could be after the buzzer. He built Magic Johnson Enterprises into a business empire, deliberately investing in underserved urban neighborhoods that every other developer had written off.
I wanted to make sure I surrounded myself with people who knew business that could teach me business. So I could get that knowledge and then build my businesses in the Black community. So I built movie theaters. I went up to Seattle and told Howard Schultz that Black people, we like coffee too. He allowed me to build 125 Starbucks in 40 different markets across the United States, proving people wrong because everybody thought it wouldn't work in the Black community.
Right. Magic came and did the deal after, man. He just did great with it.
Movie theaters, coffee shops, restaurants, health clinics. Later, ownership stakes in professional sports franchises. He became arguably the most successful post-career businessman the sport has ever produced.
A lot of people didn't loan me money or give me opportunities because I was a basketball player or I was a 6'9" Black man. Right. So I had to prove to them that I did know business.
And he did it while speaking publicly about a virus most of America was too frightened to discuss at all. The second act eventually dwarfed the first in scale, which is a remarkable thing to say about a 5-time champion. There was a principle underneath it that he repeated for decades. An athlete at that level is handed a platform most people never get near, and Magic believed wasting it was close to a moral failure. Playing in the NBA, in his view, was permission to say something the country would actually hear. So when he told a young superstar that the rings alone wouldn't hold up, he wasn't offering a platitude. He was reporting back from the other side. Then Kobe Bryant arrived in Los Angeles in 1996, and the strangest part of this whole story is that Magic was his guy.
When he came back here, all of a sudden, he had been playing against all these kids over there. And he was unbelievably skilled. His work ethic, second to none. He wasn't afraid of anything, and it was genuine.
Kobe grew up idolizing him. He's said as much repeatedly. Growing up in Italy watching tapes mailed from home, the Lakers he fell in love with were Magic's Lakers. He arrived in the same building, wearing the same purple and gold, in the shadow of the same banners. As a teenager, he sat in the Forum locker room, in awe, talking basketball with Jerry West and staring at Magic's stall.
I've been a Laker fan since 5 years old, man. I know the Laker history all the way from Minneapolis all the way to where it is today. All right, so it's in my blood.
And almost immediately, he made it clear he intended to be something entirely different from the man he'd grown up admiring. Magic won by lifting the people around him. His genius was making 4 other players better and enjoying it visibly. Kobe's instinct ran the opposite direction. He won by being unbearable to compete against, holding teammates to a standard most of them couldn't reach, and treating warmth as a distraction from the work.
Kobe Bryant played every game like he didn't like anyone he played against, which I loved.
Playing against Kobe is like playing against a grizzly bear. And if anything, any fear in you that shows, he's going to expose it.
Kobe, quote, wasn't content just to beat people. He had to embarrass them, even players on his own team.
Okay, that doesn't make a great teammate. Well, I'm not here to be a great teammate. I'm here to help you win championships. So there's a difference.
2 Lakers legends, same jersey, opposite operating systems.
He comes to the game. Some days he might not even dap you, or some days he just might be real quiet with his jaws get tight right here. His mentality is just seek and destroy.
Kobe's approach to the job was total, and it isolated him early. He entered the league at 18 in a locker room full of grown men with families and outside lives.
When we got him on the team, it was like, no more beer?
Yep.
Oh, man, you messing everything up, the kid. And I think that was kind of the thing that we guys were hazing someone that kind of pushed Kobe away from a lot of guys, because back then you weren't used to an 18-year-old kid coming in the league. And
My kids drove him around Los Angeles, and he didn't have a car, and he's 17 years old. So pretty funny to think a kid that we thought was the #1 pick.
He didn't drink with them. He didn't go out. Teammates described a young player who came in, worked, and left with no visible interest in anything beyond the sport. He watched film obsessively. He arrived hours before practice and stayed long after the lights went down. He famously studied opponents the way an engineer studies a schematic.
He was over there with a piece of paper with like 30 different basketball courts on it, and he's just like, I know that I'm gonna draw at least 3 people. So I got the guy guarding me, the guy that's coming to double, and then the help side. So we on the track before the sun comes up. And then we lift weights so hard that, all right, let's go shoot. I'm like, no, fuck, I can't lift my arms. You want me to go shoot a basketball right now? Like, his grind was sickening.
Watching the in-arena feed, the layup line, the timeouts.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, rewinding, stopping, fast forward, rewinding, slow motion, every little thing, every game of that season. With the 82-year-old Yoda. Tex Winter, Phil Jackson, the way film was broken down, it was broken down to the smallest detail. It was broken down to the right angle. Watching the game for me would take like 5 hours.
What that produced on the court is undeniable. What it produced off the court was a life with almost nothing else in it. His stated plan, in his own words, was blunt. I'm going to do my job, then I'm out.
A lot of guys played for financial stability. And when they came to the NBA, they got that financial stability. So therefore, the passion and the work ethic and the obsessiveness was gone.
That's the sentence that worried Magic. Not the work ethic, which he admired enormously. What concerned him was the exit strategy, because there wasn't one. Kobe had built an identity with a single load-bearing wall, and Magic had watched his own wall come down without warning at 32. I told him, no, you have to be more than that, Magic said. Kobe wasn't rude about it. He simply disagreed. He pointed out accurately that he wasn't built like Magic. He had no interest in charming rooms or hugging strangers. Magic's response to that is the part people usually skip. That's fine, he said. Nobody's saying you have to go around smiling, hugging people. That's me, not you. Stay you, but affect change by being you. Read that carefully because it dismantles the obvious objection. Magic wasn't asking Kobe to become friendlier or softer or more like him. He was telling him to point the same ferocity at something that would outlast his knees. Kobe wasn't ready, and for the next decade, the results made it easy to ignore the advice. By 2000, paired with Shaquille O'Neal and coached by Phil Jackson, Kobe won a championship. Then another. Then a third.
Bryant to Shaq!
3 straight titles before he turned 25.
He had an aura about him that I've never seen in an 18-year-old. I realized that we were the same people. Don't like criticism. Turn it into motivation. We will be the most talked about, the most enigmatic, the most controversial duo, the best 1-2 punch in the history of the game. I was an alpha. We didn't always agree on things, but when it come time to compete on the court, I think the fact that we always competed with each other made us even more unstoppable.
Achieved through the same single-minded approach Magic had gently questioned. It's hard to argue with a man mid-dynasty. Kobe had a system. The system was producing rings at a rate almost nobody in history had matched. And a conversation about what happens after basketball must have sounded like noise from someone whose career was already over. Underneath the winning, though, the cost was already showing. The relationship between Kobe and Shaq deteriorated so badly that during the 2001 season, with the team defending a title, the Lakers organization did something telling. They called Magic Johnson and asked him to intervene.
It's a big myth. You know, people think you have to be lovey-dovey to win championships, especially when you got two alpha males that want to be in charge. But the respect has to be there.
Kobe Bryant played every game like he didn't like anyone he played against. Shaquille being very vocal about who he was. I think those two different personalities had to clash somewhere along the way.
If you were in shape, by the time I run down on a fast break and run back and then run down, you're still coming down the first time, bruh. Like, what the hell do you want me to do? Right? So a lot of our contention came from that.
They wanted him specifically because he'd survived a version of this himself. Magic had spent years sharing a locker room with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, an enormous talent with an enormous presence and a personality nothing like his own, and the two of them had won 5 championships without ever needing to be close. It was the entire lesson he brought into the building. You don't have to like the man. You have to be willing to lose something for him. Magic met with both men separately, then addressed the media to lower the temperature. His message was practical. They didn't have to be friends, they had to be teammates, and the whole thing was about winning. It bought some time. It didn't solve anything. The two of them wanted incompatible things. Kobe wanted a partner who trained the way he did. Shaq wanted a teammate who understood that dominance didn't require suffering.
Did I work hard in practice? No, never. And let me tell you why. I'm not going to go give you 3 hard hours a day getting beat up and go home and get beat up and have to overdose myself on painkillers to get ready for the game. So I'm going to chill out in practice.
Who would Shaq be if he had your work ethic?
He'd be the greatest of all time.
Neither was willing to move, and the resentment leaked into interviews, into the locker room, into the papers. The friction consumed the dynasty. In 2004, after a finals loss to Detroit, the Lakers chose Kobe and traded Shaquille O'Neal to Miami.
They're going to win the middle 3 games, something that no team has done at home.
Business overtakes everything. Doesn't matter how you feel, doesn't matter how they feel. So they said we would entertain Shaq being traded, and I took offense to that, so I said, well, I want to go to Miami. The reason why I got traded, it wasn't about me and Kobe beef, it was what they wanted me to take less money. Not doing that.
What people forget is how close it came to going the other way. Kobe was preparing to demand a trade to Chicago that same summer, and had already looked at houses there before Shaq's request landed first. 3 championships dismantled by 2 men who couldn't coexist.
I can boastfully say that we are the most enigmatic, controversial, most dominant 1-2 punch, little to big, ever created, and we will never be duplicated. I don't care what you say, and I don't care who you try to compare us to. It'll never be another Kobe and Shaq ever again.
The years that followed were the loneliest of Kobe's career, and the criticism finally started to stick. Without Shaq, the Lakers stopped contending. In 2005, they missed the playoffs entirely for the first time in over a decade. Kobe kept scoring. He put up 81 points in a single night against Toronto, the second highest total in league history.
For the night at least. Bryant for 80. This would be 18 for 20 from the line and an 81-point game. 55 in the second half. Ladies and gentlemen, you have witnessed the second greatest scoring performance in NBA history.
You know why I had to score 81? Tough days, man. I always dreamed as a kid that, you know, it was possible to score 80 or 90 or 100. I always just like, you know, had a dream.
Watching the game now, I missed easy shots. I could have had 100.
And it barely changed the conversation because the team around him won 45 games and lost in the first round. The reputation calcified into something unflattering. Brilliant, cold, selfish, impossible to play with. The player who'd won 3 titles was now being blamed for chasing away the man he won them with. By 2007, frustrated with the roster, he demanded a trade publicly, criticized teammates on camera, and turned a bad situation into a public spectacle. He was, at that point, arguably the most respected and least liked superstar in basketball. And the man who told him to think about his legacy watched it unfold on national television. Magic, then working as an analyst, didn't defend him. First of all, it's a mess, he said. He acknowledged that any player is entitled to ask for a trade, and said he'd told Kobe as much directly. But he thought the execution was wrong, that it should have gone to Jerry Buss or Mitch Kupchak privately rather than through the media, and he criticized Kobe for running down his teammates in public. This is the part that complicates the easy version of the story. Magic and Kobe were not in constant warm contact throughout this period. By ESPN's account, there were years of missed calls between them. Two of the most significant Lakers in history living in the same city, repeatedly failing to connect. They didn't sit down properly until 2009 in an empty breakfast room at the Lakers practice facility. By then, Kobe was 30, had just won a championship without Shaq, and had run out of things left to prove on the terms he'd originally set. The timing matters. Advice tends to bounce off people who still believe the current plan is working, which is worth sitting with. The advice that would eventually define Kobe's final chapter came from a relationship that was, for long stretches, distant and occasionally strained. Magic wasn't whispering in his ear year after year. He said a hard thing once, Kobe rejected it, and it took most of 2 decades to work. By the way, if you're finding this interesting, hit subscribe, because everything from here is where the advice finally lands. Anyway, on the court, Kobe answered the criticism the way he always did. Pau Gasol arrived in 2008. Kobe won MVP, then back-to-back championships in 2009 and 2010. Including a Game 7 revenge win over the Boston Celtics where his shot abandoned him.
I had my gold medal hanging in his locker.
Oh, no.
Listen, pal, you lost to the Celtics. You lost to us in the gold medal match. Let's not make this 3 in a row that you're beating the Celtics in Game 7. That's what I'm most proud of, because it was the hardest.
He's tearing out the picture of Paul Pierce. So he cuts it out and he folds it up and he puts it in his pocket. And like, we're all looking at him, you know, like what's going on? He's like, motivation.
And he won anyway on rebounds and free throws.
As Paul Pierce, in mid-season, has helped them win 2 big playoff games. Game 6 against Orlando.
Doc Rivers, I give him credit. He has big guts.
5 rings, 2 finals MVPs. The argument, by any conventional measure, was settled. And the thing Magic warned him about hadn't arrived yet, because the career was still running. Then it stopped. On April 13th, 2016, Kobe played his final game and scored 60 points at 37 years old on a body that had been breaking down for years. A perfect exit, the kind almost no athlete gets. The next morning, he woke up as a 37-year-old man with no job, no season, and no scoreboard. 20 years of structure, gone overnight. No film to watch, no opponent to study, no reason to be in a gym at 5 in the morning. This is the moment Magic had been describing 2 decades earlier, and Kobe walked into it with a life engineered around one thing. Most superstars handle it badly. They drift, they attempt comebacks, they take television jobs they don't enjoy, they spend years quietly grieving a version of themselves that no longer exists. Kobe did something almost nobody expected.
Everybody kept coming up to me and saying, okay, you're going to have stages of grief when you retire. You're going to go into a state of depression when you retire. And then my competitiveness inside was like, no, I'm going to do something in the next 20 years that is better than these last 20. When you play for 20 years, I played for 20 years, you reach a certain level. You're like, okay, wait a minute. I have to start again at the base of a mountain and try to climb the top of this mountain. It's very scary.
He turned the same obsessive intensity toward an entirely different problem. He founded Granity Studios, a media company built around storytelling for young athletes.
What I'm trying to do is create content to teach them, first and foremost. Our kids are athletes, man. They want to learn about soccer balls and basketball. Sports is the greatest metaphor we have in terms of dealing with life. Because, you know, even if you listen to music will give you guidance. In sports, you have to apply it in the here and now.
And the mission statement was essentially Magic's argument in Kobe's handwriting. He wanted to reach kids who would never make the NBA and hand them the mentality anyway. He wrote a book about that mentality, and it sold enormously. He wrote a young adult sports novel series that landed on bestseller lists. He narrated, produced, and obsessed over the details the way he'd once obsessed over footwork. In 2018, less than 2 years after retiring, he won an Academy Award for Dear Basketball.
Writing Dear Basketball, that was a hard jump. It was my daughter who kind of put things in perspective for me, Gianna. She's now 13, and she was like, well, you always tell us to go for it. To actually win it, I remember winning it and just looking at my wife and going, what the fuck? You know, it's just like, what? Okay, all right, this happened.
An animated short film built from the poem he'd written to announce his retirement, animated by Glenn Keane and scored by John Williams. An NBA player won an Oscar, not as a producer attaching his name to a project, but for something he wrote himself. He was also quietly becoming one of the most effective investors any athlete has produced. He put roughly $6 million into a sports drink company called Body Armor in 2014, a stake reportedly worth around $400 million by the time Coca-Cola acquired the company. He co-founded a venture capital firm with a $100 million fund focused on technology and media. Understand how unusual this is. The standard athlete's second act is an endorsement deal and a broadcasting chair. Kobe was building companies, writing books, and learning an industry from the bottom the same way he'd once learned to shoot a turnaround. He'd found a new thing to be obsessive about, which was always the only version of this that was ever going to work for him. He built the Mamba Sports Academy to train young athletes, and he coached there himself rather than lending his name to a facility.
When I coach my daughter's team, it's not about giving them answers. It's about asking them questions and getting them to process things.
He mentored current NBA players, including Jason Tatum, who has spoken at length about what those conversations did for his career, and he made himself available to a generation of players who'd grown up watching him. And he became, improbably, the most prominent male advocate for women's basketball in the country.
Gigi was the future, and Kobe knew it. So we decided to build a future together. Gigi, through me, through his investment in women's basketball. That was his next great act, a girl dad. Basketball in many ways was just a metaphor.
That last one grew out of his daughter Jana, who wanted to play in the WNBA. Kobe coached her team. He took her to games and sat courtside explaining the sport to her. He studied women's basketball with the same seriousness he'd once applied to opposing defenses, learning names and tendencies, and he used his platform relentlessly to argue that the rest of the country should be paying attention. He built relationships with WNBA players who describe him as the most influential advocate they had. After his death, that work didn't stop mattering. Sabrina Ionescu, who was close with the family, has carried it forward publicly for years since. None of it produced a trophy. Not one piece of it moved the number he'd spent 20 years trying to move. All of it was about what he was leaving behind, which is the thing he'd been told to think about when he was too young to hear it. People who spent time with him in those years describe someone noticeably different. Lighter, more generous with his time, still relentless, still exacting, but pointed outward instead of inward. Which brings us to what Kobe himself said, and it's effectively a concession speech. Reflecting on how his thinking had changed, Kobe described his original ambition as something he'd outgrown. The goal of being the greatest of all time, he said, had been a fickle one. What actually mattered was how a career moves and touches the people around you.
I think the definition of greatness is to inspire the people next to you. Yeah, I think that's what greatness is or should be. It's not something that lives and dies with one person. It's how can you inspire a person to then in turn inspire another person. And what I've come to learn as my career went on is that's more significant than any championship. Is how do you connect with somebody that can then connect with another.
And how it carries forward to the next generation. That, he said, is what makes true greatness. Strip away the phrasing, and that's the same argument Magic made in a quiet conversation years earlier, when Kobe told him he had the wrong guy. He never framed it as taking anything back. Retreat wasn't in him. But the man who'd said he was going to do his job and get out had, by the end, built a publishing house, a film company, a training academy, an investment fund, a youth program, and a second identity that had nothing to do with a basketball. Then came January 26, 2020. The helicopter crash that killed Kobe Bryant, his 13-year-old daughter Gianna, and 7 other people stopped the world in a way that basketball deaths generally don't.
One of my other sons comes in the gym and he's crying. And I'm trying to pre-figure out what he's crying. When I say crying, I'm talking about tears everywhere. So I'm like, my mom okay? Your mom okay? My kids okay? And then I see the Kobe thing.
And pay attention to what the morning was actually about. There were highlights, obviously. The 81 points, The fadeaways, the Game 7s, the arenas that took 24-second violations to honor him. But the grief that spread across the planet wasn't primarily about a shooting guard. It was about a father who had been flying his daughter to a youth basketball game on a Sunday morning. It was about the girls he coached, the players he mentored.
I still text him even though he's not here. Thank you for everything. The rest is for you. Rest easy, my guy. The last one I sent him said, I miss you. May you rest in peace, my dear friend.
And millions of people who had organized their own work ethic around something he called the Mamba mentality. Murals went up in dozens of countries. People who had never watched a full NBA game stopped what they were doing. The championships were the smallest part of it, and that is not a sentimental observation. It is a measurement of what actually travels. Magic Johnson, standing at the unveiling of Kobe's statue 4 years later, said something that lands harder once you know the history between them.
Kobe changed the game, man. Kobe changed Los Angeles, the NBA. He would work out with anybody. High school, young lady, young man.
10-year-old, he worked my plays out.
Yeah, he loved the game like we all loved it.
Talking about what Kobe had been building away from basketball, Magic estimated that what he would have accomplished in business would probably have surpassed what he and Michael Jordan managed between them. Consider who is saying that. The man who defined the athlete-turned-businessman template, assessing the student who'd told him decades earlier that he wanted no part of it, and concluding the student would have gone further. So it's bittersweet, he said. That's the whole thing in one word. Magic had spent years telling a young man that the game would end and something needed to be waiting on the other side. Kobe eventually agreed, built it, and had roughly 4 years to enjoy it. Here's what the advice was never about. Magic never told Kobe to care less about winning, and he never asked him to become a different person. He said it explicitly at the time. Stay you, but pointed at something bigger. What he was really describing was arithmetic. A basketball career is a short window that closes on a schedule you don't control, and whatever you built inside it stops counting the moment it shuts. Magic knew the exact date his window closed because someone handed it to him in a doctor's office at 32. Kobe won that argument for 20 years on the scoreboard in the only currency he recognized at the time. He lost it the morning he woke up retired, and then spent his last 4 years proving the man had been right the whole way. 4 years, the entire second act. Magic got 30 and counting. That's the part that makes this one hard to shake. The advice worked. There just wasn't enough time left to see where it went.
Mentally, he was gifted.
Yeah.
And he had took this incredible interest in women. He was going to make a difference in a lot of those kids' lives.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just uniquely different. As I say, I wonder where his, what would have been the highlight of his life as a player.
Mm-hmm.
And more importantly, when he walked away from the game.
Yeah.
By the way, let me know what you think below. Do you think Kobe would have surpassed Magic and Jordan off the court if he'd had another 20 years? Drop your take in the comments, I want to hear it. Also, did you know that Kobe collected mentors his entire career, and one of the most unexpected voices who shaped him wasn't a basketball player at all? To find out who it was, click the video on your screen now.